Ah yes, British Northern Africa. How fitting! What if the British Empire existed in 1444? Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be checking out what would happen if the British Empire existed in 1444. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe, since only 20% of you are subscribed, and you can become a member today. So as you can see, it's December 1st, 1444, and I have created the British Empire at their territorial peak in 1921. I used maps such as this and this to recreate their borders in EU4 as accurately as I could. Of course, this is impossible due to the way that the province borders are shaped in EU4, but I tried to get it as close to the real thing as possible. Of course, it's not gonna be perfect. I may have missed some provinces here and there, and I may have added some extra ones here and there, but I would say it's above 95% accurate. So let's start off in Europe. Of course, they own all of the British Isles. That is expected. Moving down, they do own the province of Gibraltar, as well as Malta and Cyprus. So those are their territorial holdings in Europe. Moving down to Africa, we have these two provinces over here, which would be Guinea and Sierra Leone. Of course, they didn't have these borders in 1921, but those are pretty much the provinces. Moving over here, we have the Gold Coast and British Nigeria. Of course, these don't look like this either, but those are pretty much the provinces which they would have. Moving down to Southern Africa, and this is pretty accurate, I would say. This is, of course, a wasteland right here, you guys already know, but their real border would be something like this. Moving along, going up here, we have some more provinces. This is this region right here in Kenya and Tanzania. Of course, they surround Lake Victoria. Going up, we do have our first discrepancies right here. So in real life, they owned this area right here, which enabled them to basically connect all of their colonies in Africa. But because these provinces right here are wastelands, I couldn't give them to them. Of course, we have St. Helena right here, some other islands over here. I don't think they owned Ile Bourbon, but I accidentally gave it to them. Oh well, maybe they did. Going over here, we have British Somaliland, of course. This is decently accurate. And going up, we have British Egypt and British Sudan. Basically, that is what this is supposed to represent. And I would say it is fairly accurate for the provinces in EU4. Of course, there were a bunch of straight lines. You know the British and their straight lines, and you know how it looked in real life. You can obviously look up the map of Britain in 1921 and compare it to what I've made. Here we have the Jordan and Palestine areas. Moving down, we have the southern portion of Arabia, which is also owned by them. So Yemen, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, and so on. Going over here, we have the Iraq region, which of course was connected through here in real life. This is a wasteland, and I can't actually connect their borders over here, even though it was connected. Same as this situation right here. Going over to India, of course, they own all of Greater India, Burma right here, some areas down here as well. Going over to Southeast Asia, they have Malaya right here, some provinces that Brunei owns at the start. They even have Hong Kong, even though it doesn't really exist. I gave them the province of Canton, and they did have another port right here. I gave this province to them due to that. Going over here, they are supposed to have half of Guinea. As you know, this is a wasteland, so that's why it looks like this, and some other islands, which was a pain to find out which ones they actually owned. And that's their old world holdings, so to say. Moving on to the colonies, we can go in Central America. We have Belize right here, Jamaica, some islands over here in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, and British Guiana, of course. Going down here, we have the Falklands and South Georgia. And going over to North America, we have Bermuda and Canada, of course. Now, I don't know what's going on over here, why some of their provinces belong to their colony and others not, but it's the same situation over in Australia. They own half of it directly and half of it through their colony of Australia, so hopefully this will get fixed, but even if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. Now, I know in real life they didn't directly administer most of these areas. There were various subjects. Of course, there were hundreds of princely states in India, and honestly, it took me so many hours to set this up, and you know, some of those subject types that they had, they don't exist in EU4. So I decided to give everything to them directly, as opposed to establishing client states, protectorates, which did exist in EU4 a couple of years ago, vassals, and stuff like that. I know they didn't own everything directly, but for the sake of EU4 and for the sake of this video, let's say that they do. So that is our setup in 1444. They are number 1 on the Great Powers list with 4,856 development. These are the provinces that they desire right now, so lots of provinces. This guy is a militarist, they will be conquering very soon, and they are by far the biggest power, many times larger than even Ming. So what do you think will happen in this scenario? Leave a comment below and we'll check back in 1480. So now it's 1480 and lots of things have been happening, some good ones and some not so good ones. So let's take a look at everything that has been going on. They have lost Gibraltar to Granada. Moving east, they have lost Malta to Naples. Moving further east, they have lost Cyprus to Greece of all nations, which is pretty fun. Going over to North America, Newfoundland and British Cascadia have taken over all the provinces that were sort of messed up, and we can see that Newfoundland have expanded a bit over here in a couple of provinces. Cascadia has been expanding this way too. They've lost their provinces in Belize. Everything is alright in the Caribbean, that's held by the British West Indies, and British Guiana, it's gone to Arawak and Carib. Going down to Southern Africa, and things are pretty alright over here, everything as expected, although they are having some, well, peasant problems actually. Everything is fine in the Horn of Africa, and in fact they have expanded in this direction, taking a bunch of provinces from Ajuran. That was one of their wars, so nice growth here, and they seem to have colonized this province as well. Now this is where the not so good things start. Going over in Northern Africa, we can see that the Mamluks have broken free, and some more provinces are about to break free as well. So their first L over here, although they do have some troops going up. Either way, even more separatists over here, Syrian ones this time, and they have lost more provinces here. They've also lost provinces to Iraq over here, and a bunch of nations in Arabia have broken free. Now, this is what India looks like, and much more accurate to real life if these guys were their subjects or something, but a ton of nations have broken free. So many separatists popped out. They were doing good in the first 15 to 20 years, actually made some conquests too, like this over here. They took some provinces from the Timurids, but after that, yeah, this is what it's looking like for them in India right now. They do have cores on all of these nations, and basically you can see all the striped provinces. Those are the provinces that they've lost. Brunei has popped out. They've lost provinces over here to Sambas. Everything is alright over here though. Oh, and even Viti Levu and Vanua Levu and Tonga and Samoa have popped out. Things started off really well for Britain. They conquered a bunch of provinces, but then they blew up. To be honest, I did expect this, especially in India, but they should be getting those provinces back once they get their strength back. They do have cores on them, like I said. And they started off with 4,800 development. Now they have 2,427. Yeah, almost exactly cut in half. So now it's 1530. A missionary is tirelessly working to spread the Anglican faith in this province. So let's take a look at that first. Obviously they've went Anglican after the Protestant Reformation spawned. Now when I created them, by default they popped out as Protestant. I was like, I'm not changing it. A little role play from Great Britain too. Aside from that though, things aren't looking too good in India still for Great Britain, but they have managed to get back some provinces from the Mamluks over here, and they've pretty much secured Northern Africa. Now all they gotta do is reconquer their cores. The British West Indies are expanding into mainland South America, so that's pretty cool to see. And Britain have started to colonize elsewhere too. Looks like they've started a colony in Florida, so that's pretty nice. Meanwhile, Newfoundland and British Cascadia are expanding, so they're colonizing in other areas too. And this is what India looks like. Still some provinces left over, basically occupied by peasants. They do have cores only on a few provinces now. Basically, by this point, their cores have expired. So if they want to fight someone over here, they're gonna have to build up claims. It looks like they do have some claims on Andhra. They've also taken back provinces from Iraq over here too, but Mushasha has also done that. In Arabia, they have this region right here, although they might lose it to Hassalis and Sharjah separatists pretty soon. Last time we checked, they had like 2,400 development. Now they have even less, 2,261. So things are in fact not looking better for them. So now it's 1580 1680, another 50 years have passed. Can't seem to notice any more rebel problems, well, at least not as much as they used to have, and they've reconsolidated a bunch of provinces that they've lost. Let's start out in this region over here where they now own probably a little more than they started with. Basically, they've taken back all the cores that they lost, well, not all of them of course, and they've gotten some more provinces too. I think a couple over here, and Man is colonizing too. I'll get back to that soon. Going over to southern Africa, no changes here. They still have a bunch of provinces that they started out with, but I do think they have expanded in this direction a bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they had some of these provinces over here. So they've gained land over here, which is pretty nice. And they've pushed a lot into the Horn of Africa. Basically, Ajuran and Warsangali, they're gone now. So they have basically the entire Horn of Africa. Come on, Britain, colonize this province so we can get rid of the border gore. Going over into the Egypt area, they have taken back most of the provinces from the Mamluks, in addition to some other ones over here. The Mamluks were alive, but they got taken out by Tunis, as we can see over here. We can see that they started from basically their foothold, which was this region right here, and they started pushing east. They've taken a lot of provinces over here and up here as well. Maybe they already had some and they just connected them. We can see they have this one right here that they didn't lose, these ones right here, this one right here, some more provinces down here, these two, this one, nothing in southern India, and nothing over here either. Although, no, this is Prom, which are funnily enough allied to Great Britain. So they have started pushing in this way. Right now we're with Kalinjar, so I think things are really looking up for them right now. They seem to have lost all provinces in Southeast Asia though, which is not very good. Meanwhile, their colonies keep continuing to expand. Newfoundland has been pushing in this direction. Let's click on them and see what they have. So they have expanded over here. This is British Cascadia. They've pushed down over here a bit, and we have some provinces directly administered by Great Britain, which will of course turn into California. The West Indies are expanding in Colombia too, which is pretty nice. Will British Columbia form here? Let's wait and see. Spain and Portugal are colonizing. Spain does have Portugal in a PU. They are integrating them. They have Morocco as a subject. They're integrating them, and they probably released Aragon as a vassal, who is of course 100% disloyal. The AI is genius. We all know that. They released them after they formed Spain. Yeah, what are you gonna do? This is what the Reformation looks like, pretty weak. So now it's 1650, we're way into the age of absolutism. First off, we can see that, well, they've declared on Brittany, and they've taken 4 provinces from them. I mean, it's about time. Why does France leave Brittany alone almost every game? They didn't even have strong allies. If Britain could take them, so could France. Come on guys, you're having a good game. Why didn't you conquer Brittany? Speaking of good games, Austria is having a, well, actually, Tuscany is having a great game. Going back to Great Britain, they have managed to conquer even more provinces in the northern Africa and Arabia region. Basically a lot of provinces over here, as we can see, and they have taken back some more provinces in the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, like these ones right here, this one right here, and these ones over here. So pretty much they have this eastern portion of Africa on lock. Why aren't they declaring on Lunda? I guess we'll never know. Going over to India, they have expanded even more here as well. But not only in India, in Persia as well, we can see that they've taken quite a lot of provinces over here. They did have some from when they declared on the Timurids, but they took some more right here. Speaking of India, they have pushed this way and this way, reuniting some of their disconnected lands from their, you know, main sort of core areas right here. Oh, I didn't notice they had these lands over here still. Maybe they reconquered them recently as well. Now we can really see what they look like in this coalition map mode, and they have grown here a bit more and up here too. So that's pretty nice to see. So things are definitely looking great for them. They can definitely get back to above 4,800 development. Right now they're at 3,700, so still not at their 1444/1921 peak, but I think they will get there. They've taken economic exploration, quantity expansion, and trade ideas. This is what the Protestant Reformation looks like. It ended, of course, not too powerful, and Catholic became the dominant faith. Now it's 1680, and I didn't think a lot would happen in the past 30 years, but actually quite a few things have happened. We can see that Britain have a glorious name placement over here. Ah yes, British India, of course, but they did manage to connect their lands over here by conquering some provinces in Arabia over here. They've pushed even more into India, specifically in the more southern portion right here, so we have that. that going for them. That's pretty great, to be honest. And they've conquered some more provinces over here too, and like I said, in Arabia as well. Kaffa got annexed by Ethiopia. Will they connect their lands over here? Do they really need to? Let's take a look at if they desire these lands at all. And actually they don't, because this guy right here, he's an administrator for Elizabeth right here, who's gonna ascend to the throne in 3 years. But this is mainly where they have expanded, and in India as well. Let's see if anyone's mad that Britain is doing this, and yeah, mostly the nations in India, which is pretty expected. They aren't expanding too much in other directions. Their colonies, of course, are growing. We can see that British Mexico is getting pretty big right here. And we have the 13 colonies, so that colonial nation has been established as well, which is pretty nice. Brazil has broken free, and we have Breton and Dutch La Plata. I always see Brittany colonizing in these videos. I wonder why. But North America is now being dominated by British colonies. We do have strong native nations, and Mexico is being dominated by Spain. Oh, it's Portuguese Mexico. Of course, it is a Spanish colony. They integrated Aragon and released them again, by the way. So Spain, they're geniuses. Either way, Britain do have two tributary states, Comanche and Salish, and we'll check back in the Age of Revolutions in 1730 and see if we can get revolutionary Great Britain. Personally, I've never seen it. Now it's 1730, we are in the Age of Revolutions. Straight off the bat, we can see that they've expanded over here in Northern Africa, taking over these provinces. I think they were owned by Tunis. Tunis still exists. They are allied to Mallorca. You know, this Spanish AI man? I'm not even gonna say anything. Aside from that, they've expanded in Arabia even more, conquering almost all of it except for these two provinces, which are owned by Ethiopia. Ah yes, Ethiopian Al-Yamana. Nice. They've also expanded in this region too, taking the coastline from Ethiopia, which have been encircled by Great Britain, and in turn, Janjiro have been encircled by Ethiopia. Shout out to Hearts of Iron. Either way, they've also been expanding over here, moving even more into Persia. Anglo-Persian oil, anyone? Well, I hope not. Either way, they have also expanded in India, taking, well, almost all of northern India, with some small nations left here and there being completely surrounded by them. Some bigger nations in the eastern part are surviving, such as Jaunpur and Bengal, and we have Vijayanagar in the south. Speaking of Vijayanagar, they spawned the revolution. So, will any nations go revolutionary? Probably not. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But Bengal has also gotten it. They've also connected some of these lands they had over here, which is pretty nice. Nice little strip going over here. You know, the British and their straight borders. Well, this isn't that straight, but you know what I mean. Going back to Africa, they have conquered this entire region as well. I still don't know why they won't fight Lunda. I mean, they're right there, right? They don't have any strong allies, just these guys. They could probably take them in one war at this point. Do they even want these lands? No. I don't know. I guess they're not interested in the Congo trade node. That's gotta be it, right? But they have gotten Cyprus back. That's pretty nice. And they definitely have grown a lot in these past 50 years. Manchu formed, by the way, and Chagatai, and we got 2 more jumps in time, and we'll check back in 1780. So now it's 1780, and yes, British Northern Africa. How fitting. But some crazy things have happened in the past 50 years, something I completely didn't even think about. It didn't cross my mind. You guys can see this wonderful flag down here, right? Well, let's hover over to the British Isles, and we can see revolutionary Great Britain. That's right. Now, isn't this the most disgusting flag you've ever seen in the game? Please, why couldn't they have something cool like revolutionary Transoxiana, huh? Now that's a sick flag if you ask me. Either way, the revolution did spawn in Vijayanagar, you guys remember. Actually, their flag is really nice too, but it did spawn here. I didn't even think about Great Britain getting it because it's like so far from their capital or something, but they did. It spread to all of their lands over here and they became revolutionary. I really don't know how that happened, but we do have some more revolutionary nations such as Vijayanagar and Transoxiana, which I already showed. Those are the revolutionary nations. Not too many, but very surprising to me that Great Britain did become one. Aside from that, they have been expanding a lot and they have been involved in some massive wars. Just recently, they fought the Ottomans and Transoxiana. Now, they didn't take too much from the Ottomans. I think only this province right here, but they did make them release Serbia for some reason, which is pretty funny. You know, this is a very rare case where Austria actually doesn't exist. France borders the Ottomans in the Alps right now. Either way, Britain have been expanding. As you can see, they full annexed Ethiopia, I think. Oh, Janjiro still exists. Bruh. They have taken even more provinces in India. They have yet to fight the biggest nations like Vijayanagar, and they're actually in a war with Vijayanagar right now in the British conquest of Golconda, so they did just declare on them. And they also haven't fought Bengal much either. They have almost all of Persia, so BP is a go, and they have expanded in this region as well. They fought a huge war versus Chagatai. And they've taken some provinces from Spain as well. Spain, of course, being the genius that they are, released Aragon like 70 times, and now they've lost out to Britain and especially France up in the north, which is pretty cool. This is what South America looks like. Not much changes since the last time we checked in, but the natives are pretty much gone from North America. New Norway is still hanging out over here. We'll check back in for a final time in 1821, and I can't wait to see what that brings us as we close out this campaign. And it's finally January 3rd, 1821. So let's go over everything that has happened in this campaign, where we took a look at what would happen if the British Empire at its peak in 1921 existed in 1444. Obviously, you guys know the borders I gave to them. It's been like 20 minutes for you guys, but I gave them their peak territorial borders in 1921. Now at the start, they started off good, conquering some provinces in the Horn of Africa, in the Timurids and the Persia region, but after that, they got into quite a bit of trouble with a bunch of separatists, and they had the Great Peasants' War, and they were stuck in that loop of losing territory to separatists for quite some time. But after that, they managed to recoup and reconsolidate and started to reconquer all the lands that they had previously lost. Well, not all of them, but what they don't have in one place, they do have in someplace else. Let's start off with Europe. Not a whole lot of territorial expansion in Europe. The only provinces that they took are these four ones right here in Brittany. They lost Gibraltar and Malta and Cyprus, but they got Cyprus back. Going over to North America, they had the Canada region where Newfoundland and British Cascadia existed. Both of those colonies have expanded quite a lot, and other ones have formed, such as British Columbia, British Louisiana, Mexico, and the 13 colonies. They are dominating North America, with small native nations here and there, French Louisiana and Florida, and New Portugal existing as well. Not a lot of expansion in Central America. They did have the British West Indies, which have expanded in Colombia, but otherwise the Caribbean are dominated by Spain, Mexico is dominated by the French, and in South America we also have British Columbia and Brazil, and the British West Indies occupying a big part of what is supposed to be owned by British Columbia, not to be confused with British Columbia. It's kind of confusing. British Columbia? British Columbia. They're both Columbia. Let's just say it's just all one colony, you know? Otherwise, in South America, we also have Brazil, which was a Portuguese/Spanish colony, French Brazil, which they call the Antarctic for some reason. I still don't know why. And some Spanish colonies, as well as Breton and Dutch ones. Going down to Africa, they had a few provinces over here, as well as big portions of land here and here. They lost those, but gained those back and sort of merged their two colonies in quotation marks over here. We also have Britain here. Let's see where their capital is. It's actually right here. Their capital is right here in Futa Jalon. They also had a big portion of southern and eastern Africa, which they conquered even more of. This region right here, the Horn of Africa, they own all of it. They lost out a bunch of provinces to the Mamluks in Egypt earlier, but they have gotten them back. And they've lost some more to the Ottomans recently, and they're currently in a war in the British reconquest of Gaza. I guess we'll never see what happens. They also conquered the entirety of Arabia, despite owning the south and losing it and gaining it back and conquering even more of it. Now, their biggest losses were in India. They owned pretty much the entirety of India, as well as Burma and parts of Thailand as well, but they have gained most of it back and have expanded a bunch in Persia and a little bit over here. They lost all their holdings here, they haven't gained them back, and they had a bunch of provinces here and here, which they still haven't gained back. They have expanded over here though, and their colony Australia was just chilling pretty much the entire game. Not a lot of changes in their island territories, and they did lose Canton and Laiju back to Ming. They did start off as Protestant, but they did go Anglican. Of course, they converted everything they could. Actually, they've converted a big portion of India. I'm just seeing this now, so that's pretty cool to see. Of course, not a lot of conversion in the New World. This is what the religion map mode looks like. A weak Reformation this game, but lots of cursed stuff thanks to Britain converting provinces to Anglican. This is the culture map mode. They haven't changed culture at all, almost. Pretty much the only thing you see that is English culture is stuff that they've colonized. They also did go revolutionary after the revolution spawned in Vijayanagar, but they seem to have turned back to, well, a regular monarchy. An English monarchy, not a regular one, sorry. So that's what Britain have been doing for the past 400 or so years. Aside from that, France had a really strong game, thanks to Spain having a really dumb game because they released Aragon 17 times. Tuscany exists and they're pretty strong, and the Ottomans are really strong too, but but they have lost out a bit to Great Britain, but they have gained back some provinces too. Scilly is also huge. Austria doesn't exist, which is crazy to see. The French border the Ottomans. Bohemia is nice, Brandenburg is nice too, Wolgast is having a good game, Sweden is strong, the Commonwealth is great, Revolutionary Transoxiana is playing tall, obviously, this is what playing tall is, Chagatai is thick, and Russia have sucked. We also have Ming and Qing at the same time. Qing is always nice to see, one of my favorite colors in the game. Japan has unified their lands, and we have Britain in Japan as well. That's pretty awesome. Going into the ledger, we can see that they do have the biggest army with over 2 million troops. That's crazy, way bigger than the second biggest force, which is the Ottomans, followed by France, Newfoundland, Daviet, the Commonwealth, French Louisiana, Vijayanagar, Transoxiana, Chagatai, Spain, and so on. Great Britain obviously have the biggest income with over 2,000 ducats a month, way more than the next biggest earner, the Ottomans, followed by France, close behind. Then we have the Commonwealth, Holland, Transoxiana, Vijayanagar, Venice, Tuscany, Newfoundland, Daviet, Spain, Siak, Japan, and so on. In the Great Powers list, Great Britain are obviously at number 1. They started out with 4,800 development, fell down all the way to 2,600 if I remember correctly, and now they're at 9,300, almost doubling their starting dev in 1444. Then we have France, the Ottomans, Spain, the Commonwealth, Daviet, Ming, and Qing. Great Britain did become a military hegemon, but they swapped to an economic one, something that the AI loves to do, start off as a military hegemon and go to an economic one, and that's pretty much what the world is looking like in 1821. So what would happen if the British Empire at their territorial peak in 1921 existed in 1444? Well, obviously straight away in 1444 they weren't ready for all that territory. That's why they lost it. It's a bit too early for them, I would say, but after that they managed to reconsolidate and grow even bigger than their historic territorial peak. If you want this save game, this save file in 1444 is available to all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel, and you can play as Great Britain in 1921 but in 1444. Let me know in the comments below what's the next what if scenario that I should do a video about. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe, since only 20% of you are subscribed, and you can become a member today and join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.